What is up, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Nickel City Rush Hour, Sunday edition. I say Sunday edition because as we get closer to the season, we will be going live on Wednesdays and Sundays. So right now, though, during the off season, we've just been going live on Sundays. So, man, we got a good one for all of you tonight. We're going to try to answer that burning question that everybody has. Which team, which AFC team can stop the Chiefs from three-peating? I needed a lot of help with this. I can't just do this myself. So I had to bring in some of my friends, just some experts. And over to the right here of me is Mr. Cody Smith from the Fantasy Draft Room. He joined us a few weeks back when we did the gridiron battle with the Texans. He's right there, I believe, right there in Texas. And I heard there was like a potential hurricane coming through. How's things going out there?
We're good for right now. It's been pushing off and further a little bit away from us. Now time or landfall supposed to be 2 a.m. But yeah, we got Hurricane Beryl coming through. So luckily we just redid the roof. But yeah, we should be good. Maybe losing some power and some flooding tomorrow in the next couple of days. But yeah, we're toughing out our first hurricane in Houston right now. It'll be fun. It'll be not fun, but interesting, I'll say.
Is Houston getting hit the hardest? How's Dallas?
It probably won't reach all the way up into Dallas, other than just
Okay.
rain whenever it makes landfall, depending on which way it moves. But yeah,
All
first
right.
time in Houston ever having one come through.
Wow. Well, praying and hoping all you guys are good. And it just is one of those things where they predict it's going to be much worse than it actually is. So hoping that's the case for you, Cody. Sean Kula, people have been looking for you, man. They haven't seen you on the Red, White, and Ruthless in a few weeks. I know you've been out there grinding, working hard. But how you doing, my friend?
Good. Yeah, we're taking a couple weeks off, kind of slow in the off season, and there's just a lot of randomness out there, and we were kind of just like, well, let's take a couple weeks, and as it gets closer to training camp, we could put out some videos. So we'll probably be back next week, Brett and I. But yeah, doing good. Was fixing up the office, so I didn't want to be holding my laptop and sitting on my couch and showing my face for videos. So I kind of was just going with whatever random picture I found. And the names will continue today. I just didn't have enough time because I had to do a couple last minute things. But yep. So here I am again.
I like you going back to the original from the Red, White, and Bills. Got his own channel. And so go check him out. Of course, give him some love as always. Sean's been on. He's he's a full-time member almost. My goodness, I'm gonna have to start paying insurance for him. I feel like
Definitely.
Chad the Chief, you are the star of the show today because you are going to be bringing us, after we give you who we think, you're going to share with us who you think, of course, is the biggest threat, and also just what the feel is around town. Weston, I hope you two have been talking it up. I know Weston will put some stuff out on the channel who he fears the most, but it's going to be interesting to get your take because you and Weston are our resident Chiefs guys in our Discord and on our show. You join us a lot. We appreciate you. By the way, we do have a Discord channel. It's free to join. We talk it up. We got all kinds of topics going on there, and it's absolutely free. Unlike other channels, they charge you to get to Discord and they charge you to message. We don't. Anyhow, the link is in the description of the show. So let's get this kicked off. Weston, I see you out there. Appreciate you as always. So let's get this party started. Sean, as we kind of mentioned, and we said we're going to throw out two teams, each of us, who we think is the biggest threat to the Kansas City Chiefs. We're going to start with you, sir. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm honored. Well, there was a couple that I was narrowing it down to, but obviously one of them I had to go with was Buffalo. And when we talk about teams that have played against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs and his tenure there, the team that's beaten them the most is the Buffalo Bills. Obviously, it hasn't been when it mattered the most, but when you watch the Chiefs and the Bills play, it's always must-see television. It's, maybe the championship in 2020 was kind of, lopsided at the end, but for the first half, it was like a super, like when I was watching it at home, I was like, there's no way, right? We're not going to win this game. There's no way we can do this. So, but, in the first half, it was pretty close. And, it seems like we're kind of the same team. Obviously, their coaching is much better. Their quarterbacks are both the most talented. They're kind of in their own separate lane, most talented in the league. And then, pretty solid defense all around, pretty great offensive line, good tight ends, decent receivers, good running backs. So we're kind of built the same. And as you've seen it throughout the years, we match up very well together, whether it's the Chiefs or the Bills, winning or losing. So obviously we lost some people around us, but so did Kansas City, not as many, pieces as we lost. But I just think when they play each other, it's just another that we turn on another switch and change it to another team. So Buffalo, of course, and then again, it was another team that someone else is going to mention. But if I had to pick another one, I would pick Baltimore. And reason I picked Baltimore was they're always tip top shape and defense, top 5 every year. And then now they added Derrick Henry to the mix. Zay Flowers will be in year 2. They got Mark Andrews. And I just feel like, they kind of got waxed by Kansas City last year. But even though Ravens didn't play too well, if Zay Flowers didn't fumble the ball at the 1, maybe the game could have been a little bit different. I just think the Ravens, again, well coached. Lamar Jackson is a superstar quarterback. Again, not like Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen, but that defense, they won the Triple Crown last year, and I'm anticipating them to be really good again this year. Again, I wouldn't be as confident in the Ravens as I would be Buffalo, but again, at the end of the day, anybody can beat anybody. But for the purpose of the exercise, I really confident in Buffalo's ability to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. Hopefully when it counts this time, but that has yet to be seen. And then again, Baltimore, they beat them once before. They had a great matchup, a couple pretty great matchups with the Chiefs. And, it really just comes down to a couple plays, and the Chiefs always make a couple more plays than needed to be to win. So those are my 2.
Yeah, I love that, Sean. I mean, I think my theme this year is flip the script for the Buffalo Bills. And that is, maybe I'm okay with them losing during the regular season. Just win the playoff game. Flip the script. I want it to be different. You're so close. You get enough chances at someone, you're going to get that victory. And I got to say, for all the people that continue to hate on Josh Allen, you all know when the playoffs come around. You all know when you're looking at that schedule, who we playing? Oh, damn, it's Josh Allen. You see Josh Allen on that schedule, you fear him. You fear him and the team. But JA17, again, like you said, Sean, just one of the best there is out there, and you should fear him. And I like your pick with the Bills. People have they're sleeping on him. I think it's a little bit of a rebuild. It is, if you honestly look at it. But I mean, I still have high hopes for this team, and they have enough leadership and they have enough skilled players, JA17, to make this happen. So Baltimore, yeah, what can you say about Baltimore? I mean, Lamar, it was a 17-10 game. It was a defensive game, old school last year. And if Lamar Jackson, not only did you see Flowers fumble going into the end zone, Lamar threw an interception late in that game. He also had a strip sack fumble. So it was a rough game for him. They lost some key players. I know they lost Patrick Queen, and was the other guy they lost? I think it was Clowney. They had Clowney last year. They lost him. He moved on. It seems like Clowney always moves on every year or two. I don't know. He must have the record for most teams that he's played on.
Yeah, well, they got a couple guys waiting in the wing. There was a guard that we liked, Voorhees. Remember him, Mike?
Yep, sure.
He was hurt all last year, recovering. He'll be there starting this year. And then there was a linebacker who got hurt in the combine. He was supposed to be a first-round pick, and they ended up picking him up in the 5th or 6th round last year. I think it was last year. But he'll be taking Patrick Queen's spot. So they were prepared for this kind of thing. And just real quick about the Chiefs is it's just amazing because as much as I don't like that they're always in the championship and in the Super Bowl and winning, it really comes down to 1 or 2 plays in the postseason. And sure, they didn't look great in the regular season, but they know what to do and how to do it when it comes to the big moments. And that's why coaching, so Jake Gruden mentioned if you put Andy Reid and Josh Allen together and Patrick Mahomes and Sean McDermott, I think the Chiefs would still win if they had Josh Allen. So it's like when you look at it from that lens, as great as Mahomes is, Reed and Spags, having those 2 people on your team is so important. And some people might overlook it because Mahomes is so great. But when you look at those playoff games, one play here, one play there. Look in the Super Bowl, Mahomes made one or two more plays than Brock Purdy did, and that's all you need. So it's not really about the Chiefs being the best team in the league, but they're the best when it comes down to doing the little things when it matters most. So that's why they keep, what was it, 5 years in a row now, Chad, in the championship? Six AFC championships in a row. So this goes to show, they know how to turn it on. So it'd be interesting.
Yeah, I'm going to throw it to Cody. And Cody, before you go into your two teams, I wanted to ask you, because you're doing a lot of fantasy stuff right now. But one of the big additions was Derrick Henry. I don't know, it's a little bit of a head scratcher for me, because I feel like there were other needs to kind of get them over the top. They're a running team, but they play that what is it called, the RPO. And Derrick Henry isn't that type of dude. You just get handing the ball off straight ahead, plow everyone over. He's got great speed. But what do you think about that addition for them?
I actually really like it, because what we also saw was a Lamar Jackson who wasn't even able to run as much he didn't really run as much in this new Todd Monken offense as he had in the past. And I think if you put in a Derrick Henry type of player, that RPO game just becomes that much more terrifying, because who do you want to tackle whenever somebody's coming at you? I mean, whenever it's Gus Edwards and Justice Hill last year, it doesn't really put all that much fear into you. But if you got Derrick Henry barreling down at you and you got to figure out whether you're going to tackle him with all the confidence in the world, or if Lamar Jackson's just going to pull that ball and go hit outside of the RPO game, if he gets it back to a little bit of the 2 years ago form that I think is a rusher that he is, I actually really like it for their style of what they're doing. It'll be interesting to see how they merge the two, because you're right, he's not like an outside zone runner. He's more of that power gap scheme runner. So it'll be interesting to see how they merge him with that RPO. But I think it's just, looking at it from the defensive side, that's a terrible combination to have to go and try to figure out which guy you're tackling.
Agree. So are you telling me that I should draft Derrick Henry, and where's he going?
Let's see. He's coming out. I'm halfway through projections right now, projecting out all players for all 32 teams that are fantasy relevant. He's coming out as my RB5 right now in the teams that I have done. So we got about 10 teams left to do. But if he's handling the workload, the only other real thing that they've got there is Keaton Mitchell, who's coming off of an ACL injury late in the season. So I don't expect him to be back for probably the first 8 or so games. It's going to be a lot of Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson in the running game.
Yeah. All right, Cody. One real quick. Let me just talk to some folks here on the channel, and we'll get you started on your two teams. Weston says Josh Allen is light years better in big games than Lamar Jackson. Definitely. Something I was thinking about today. Can you imagine, right now the conversation is, and I'm not going to debate it, that Patrick Mahomes is the overall best quarterback. Can't debate that. What if Josh Allen would have beat him in that 13-second game? What if Josh Allen would have won last year's game? And again, I want to get away from, it's not Josh Allen beating Mahomes. It's the Buffalo Bills beating the Chiefs. It's a whole team game. But if the Bills win those two games, people might be saying 1A, 1B. I know there's some folks that say that already, but how different just two games could have changed where we're at right now when you're talking about those two quarterbacks. But for right now, he's clearly the number two. I actually put out a video this week, and we've had that on our show last Sunday talking about that. But anyhow, Cody, let's hear you too, buddy.
All right. First team we're going to go through, we're going to stay inside of the AFC North, and I'm actually going to go with a little bit of a bounce back team, obviously suffering with a lot of injuries last year. We're going to go to the Cincinnati Bengals for the first one. Starting off with just kind of the concerns, and overall, it's definitely not the team that I would pick first to be. I'd probably pick the Ravens as well to be my first team, but we'll diversify it up a little bit here. The obvious concerns are that defense looked god-awful last year. Coming off, I still trust Lou Anarumo, so I think they can do a little bit of a bounce back, and I don't think it helps whenever Joe Burrow was playing as bad as he was at the beginning of the year, and then you go to Jake Browning as a backup quarterback. The defense has to do a lot more work whenever you're not scoring 35 points a game as you were the past couple of years with Joe Burrow while he was healthy. But then that's the other thing. You got to worry about the health of Joe Burrow as well. We'll see if I can pronounce it right, but the scaphoid ligament tear that he had in his wrist is a concern that some people have had with his throwing motion, if he can get back to full form with that. From the injury, it's Twitter fantasy doctors, but from the one that I trust, which is Jeff Mueller, basically, and then some of the other guys in the NFL that have talked about it, normally this is a defensive side of the ball injury, and what people normally do on the defensive side of the ball that can actually play through it is they wait till the season is over, and then they have the surgery, and then they've said it never really healed properly, and they don't get the full range of motion back. For Burrow, though, obviously you can't throw a football, so he got that surgery right away. And for all the fantasy doctors out there, they say that as long as you have the surgery right away, full range of motion is going to come back. So I don't really have the concern there. It is more so with the defense, especially as you're losing guys like DJ Reader, Jonah Williams, Awuzie as well. You've got a lot of departures that are coming off of that team, off of the defense that was already not very good. But you add in a Sheldon Rankins, you get Geno Stone back in there, Von Bell. I think the defense is okay enough if the offense can return to form, and you've still got T. Higgins coming back, and it looks like he's accepted that he's actually going to play out this deal for this last year and then move on. Seems to be fully committed. You add in a Jermaine Burton out of Alabama. You add in a Mike Gesicki as well, who I think has been underutilized wherever he's gone the past couple of years. So I think there's a lot of stuff that this offense is good enough to overcome, along with the defensive side that they have. You also draft an absolute monster out of Georgia and Amarius Mims to start locking down a little bit more of that offensive line. And then you get a McKinley Jackson that I really like out of my Texas A&M Aggies for the defensive line to add a little bit more into there as well. So I think everything that this team has done, we've seen how good they are, and it just feels like people are maybe overlooking them a little bit just because of how bad it looked last year. But if they get back to form, I think they have the tools to beat the Chiefs. And then you look at that head-to-head matchup that everybody was going into 2 years ago. And I mean, Patrick Mahomes did finally pick up that win, but Joe Burrow just in head-to-head matchups is 3-1 against Patrick Mahomes. And he's shown that they can overcome this team. And the offensive side of the ball is where the Chiefs actually struggled more so than the defensive side of the ball last year. I think this team has enough to be able to put it all together to potentially take down the best team in all of the NFL.
Love it. Who's your other team, sir?
This one, I mean, we got to do it. We got to go with the hometown Houston Texans here, right? It's got to be CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans. What this team has done and the steps that they took, I mean, if they have the same level of growth year over year from year one to year two, obviously that's not going to happen because of how dirt poor bad they were in 2022. But if they could take another step forward into 2024, they still do need to take a step. Like, I think we forget that this is a team that had to win their 18th week game to even get into the playoffs and get that home playoff game that we had last year. But if CJ Stroud can take even a small step forward, you bring in a Stephon Diggs, you bring in Joe Mixon to just take this offense to a completely another level. Your offensive line is much healthier than they were at any point throughout all of last year. And then you add in some pieces on the defensive side as well. You bring in a Danielle Hunter to get Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter edge force between this defense. I still have concerns, at least in the interior. The linebackers aren't very good. The safeties over top aren't very good. And then your defensive tackles. We went through that process, and PFF absolutely obliterated those guys from their play last year. So there's still some concerns that I have on the defensive side of the ball. But again, if this offense can take another step forward, there's absolutely no limits to what CJ Stroud and these Houston Texans can do going into 2024. I still think they're probably another year away. I think there needs to be another year of growth here, and then potentially you lose the offensive coordinator going into 2025 if that's the case as well. But if this team continues their growth that they've done over the last year or two, no ceiling as to what this team could be going into 2024. I think they're definitely another team that could be a team to take down the Kansas City Chiefs.
Cody, I love that you're just very casual with your team. You're ready to not say this team's taking it, because I got to ask you, when you look at the offense, and as I was doing research for just this show, I didn't realize they got Mixon, right? It was the Bengals traded with them. So they got Mixon. That three-headed monster wide receiver might be the best three receivers in the NFL. It really might. You got our guy, Steph Diggs, and you got a good running back. Tell me where you think, I mean, if you look at their the roster as a whole, where's that weakness? Because it can't be on offense. I feel like that offense is going to be putting up some big numbers and probably a top fantasy football offense, honestly.
You still got to worry a little bit about the run game. Joe Mixon hasn't been, I mean, he's always been serviceable and he's been good, but we also saw last year Dameon Pierce absolutely turned to dust because he couldn't run zone scheme. And from what everybody's been telling me is Joe Mixon doesn't actually run the zone scheme very well either. So I think he has more ability to learn and pick that up. And hopefully Dameon Pierce can come along a little bit as well. But there is still a concern within the run game. But the passing game, yeah, like I don't see how anybody is fighting this thing. You give offensive coordinator another year to grow and kind of revolutionize everything, because it was a really bland version of what San Francisco was running last year. So yeah, there's another step there. It is truly just the defense. I'm worried about the run up the middle game, the defensive tackles between your guys, Fatukasi and Nico Autry. I mean, it's serviceable enough, but if you take any injuries there, the depth just falls off the board. Don't really like that one. And then the corners. I mean, Jalen Petrie needs a really big bounce back year. Jimmy Ward isn't anything big. I did watch from our show, watch some Kamari Lassiter. I am a little bit more excited about that one now that we went back and watched some film on that one, as y'all told me to do. So a little bit more excited there. Derek Stingley is going to have to stay healthy as well. So I think it is just this defensive side of the ball, and then you're probably just going to, if it falls off or it doesn't hold up, you're just going to be in offensive shootouts. But I'm trusting CJ Stroud to do that.
I like it, and I think I'll take some of that information you talked about at the defense, and I'll send it over to One Bills Drive. So as we get ready to play, you guys, we focus on the run game. Is what it sounds like we should do, and maybe some of that short stuff, which we're going to be doing a lot of short passes this year. Sean, I'll go back to you in a second, and before we throw it over to Chad. But the last thing on the Bengals, I also had the Bengals. I had the Bengals, Baltimore, and I had the Bills, of course. And I have one more when it's my turn. But the thing I love about the Bengals, the big question mark again, is Joe Burrow. Like Joe Burrow, what do they say? Best ability is availability. And he's been dinged up a lot. So if he can come back and stay healthy, I like what you said, Cody. And I love their defensive coordinator, Lou Anarumo. And when they play the Chiefs with Spags and Anarumo, I mean, it's two of the best defensive coordinators in the game. And I just love how they make adjustments all the time. It seems at half. And one team's doing great in the first half, they'll make an adjustment, and then the other team comes out strong. Those two are just fun to watch, and they've had some success, as you've said. I think they're 1-1 in AFC championship games. They played twice. And I think Burrow's had a pretty good, what'd you say? He was 1-3 against the Chiefs, something like that.
Joe Burrow head-to-head is 3-1 against Mahomes.
Oh, yeah. He's 2-0 in the regular season and 1-1 in the playoffs. So good stuff. Sean, anything you want to talk about as far as what Cody had to say about those two teams?
Oh, yeah, no, I definitely love what he said. And the Bengals was the other team I would have picked. If not, if it was Buffalo, I would have picked the Bengals above Baltimore. And, yeah, I said the Bills had beaten the Chiefs the most, but I forgot that the Bengals won 3 times. Burrow won 3 times against them as well. So both Allen and Burrow both have 3 wins, which is the most of any other quarterback. But, yeah, like you said, another team that pairs well with Kansas City as far as the matchup goes. I think, Buffalo hasn't reciprocated that against the Bengals yet, but those 3 teams, I feel like in a triangle, they all can fit well against, 1-for-1, always a good matchup. So again, I think we're the worst coach team out of those 3 teams. And you kind of can see it when it matters most, who ends up coming on top. But, Bengals, I think if Burrow could stay healthy, again, which is a huge if, he's always constantly injured. And, like last year, he hurt his calf in preseason, then he hurt his wrist. It's just he can never just put a whole season together, it seems like. So that's a concern. But you saw them battle with a backup quarterback last year. They almost made the playoffs. They won 9 games with I think they were 5-5 with Burrow, and then or 5-4 or something, and then they ended up being 9-8. So they made me worried for a minute because I thought we wouldn't make the playoffs if because we were 6-6. I was like, oh great, we're really going to lose to the backup Bengals are going to make the playoffs over us. But yeah, and as far as the Texans go, again, definitely agree with what you said. It's one of those things where I like what the Texans are doing. I think they got a ton of talent surrounding their potential superstar quarterback. I just got to see it all come together again next year. And, I think they'll still fight for the division. It's just going to be a little bit tougher now, obviously, because now they're playing a first place schedule. But I think they're up to the challenge. Second year with the new head coach, and again, was it Bobby Slowick? Is that who you guys got? A fantastic job last year, and like you said, another year to build with that team. So definitely watch out for them. And I love that those choices that Cody had.
Yeah, awesome. I do want to say too that Vegas loves the Ravens. They have them 3rd favorite to win the Super Bowl, and they have the Bengals as the 6th favorite to win the Super Bowl. Bills are 7, Texans are 8. Cody, they love the Texans this year, and then of course the Jets are at 11, Green Bay's at 10, Dallas is at 9. So love your stuff. So coming over to me here, I'll be the last one before we throw it over to Chad. I'll be quick. I had the teams that you guys were talking about. And I was like, all right, I kind of knew. I just knew you're going to use those guys. So I'm like, all right, who's that team out there that I think could be the sleeper? First, I looked in the division. I would love to have a division rival like the Chargers be giving them a run this year. But I looked at it, and while I like the roster, I just still think it's a year away from competing with the Chiefs to take that division. With Jim Harbaugh, you just, they've picked up some nice pieces in the offseason. I like their draft. Of course, they parted ways with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. So did the Bills draft. They let go of their number 1 and number 2. But Mike Williams heads over to this team. I'm going to say is the sleeper. And Sean, close your ears, please. Close your ears. You don't want to hear this. I promise you there was no check sent to me from Anthony. If everything holds up with Aaron Rodgers, if Aaron Rodgers is 80% of what Aaron Rodgers used to be, the New York Jets, by the way, they might be worth a nice bet in Vegas, are that team. I think their roster is stacked. Defensively, they have the defense that can shut down anybody. Offensively, they have great skill players, and they've improved their offensive line, which was their weakest link. Now, of course, with Aaron Rodgers, even if you had a bad offensive line, he's known to get rid of the ball quickly and on target. So if Aaron Rodgers is 80% of Aaron Rodgers and he's healthy throughout the year, now they do have Tyrod Taylor as the backup, which is a much more serviceable backup if he was to go out for a few games. But they need him the whole year, Rodgers, for this team to be that team. But I think they're capable, man. Look at that roster: Mike Williams, Garrett Wilson. What's the guy? Corley, the guy they drafted. What's his first name? I always forget his first name.
Malachi Corley.
They're very high on him. Conklin at the tight end position. Breece Hall, absolute stud at running back. And watch out. Again, it's all a big if Aaron Rodgers. And it's funny because I was just saying last week on one of the shows, but this is a sleeper. And I know you might be saying to me, Mike, how is it a sleeper? Everybody thinks his team has the best roster, one of the best rosters in football. I just have a hard time with that coaching staff. I'm not a fan of the coaching staff. And I'm not sure. I'm kind of with Keith, what he said last year. I'm not sure Aaron Rodgers is fully invested. We'll see. And can he stay healthy? But that's my sleeper team. Thoughts on that, Sean? I know you. It's pained you to hear that, but thoughts?
I knew you were going to say the Jets, but people sometimes forget. 2 years ago, when he was in Green Bay, he had the same team Jordan Love was leading last year. All he did was complain, said how bad the weapons are. The talent's not good enough. They didn't make the playoffs. And then Jordan Love took over, took the same team all the way to the divisional round, won a playoff game, and everyone just omits that part of, Aaron Rodgers, 2 years ago or 3 years ago, he was an MVP. Well, 2 years ago, he wasn't that good. Oh, but he was injured. Oh, and then he was injured last year too. So now 2 years of injury, people, we'll get over that, right? He's going to be, 50% of him will be enough. Jets fans always say, if we just had competent quarterback play. Well, I'm pretty sure 2 years ago they had Joe Flacco, right? And Joe Flacco last year took the Browns to 12 wins and to make the playoffs. So how come he was good enough for the Browns, but when he's on the Jets, they still stunk? And that's one thing I always wonder too. And then the Jets defense, as stacked as they are, they're kind of like Tua to me. Always beats up on the bad teams. And when they play the good teams, they give up 25 points, 30 points, 23 points. They're not as good as they seem to be. They give up 16 against us. That's pretty good. But more times than not, they always get blown out by the good teams because they quit because they can't score on offense. And that's not – you can't put your faith into a team like that if you're going to quit when things are tough. So, and like you said, the coaching staff stinks too. So I'm not sold on the Jets. Yeah, they got a great defense. They got a bunch of names, household names on offense. And sometimes people also forget. They're like, oh yeah, well, Aaron Rodgers throwing to Garrett Wilson, it's going to be a lot different. Garrett Wilson had 168 targets last year. Is he going to have 250 targets with Aaron Rodgers? No, he's probably going to have a similar amount of targets, and it might give or take a couple hundred yards, maybe a little bit less, with Aaron Rodgers throwing the football. So it's not like they weren't giving their best weapon targets. So I don't think like people are automatically assuming they're going to go from 7 to 13 wins just because they added Aaron Rodgers. But again, they got a pretty easy schedule compared to the rest of the division besides the Patriots. So they might win a few games, but as soon as things start going wrong, the defense is going to give up again, and then Aaron Rodgers is going to start complaining, and the New York media is going to eat him alive. So again, could definitely see him being a sleeper, but you got to prove something to me before I hitch my wagon to you.
This might be the funniest comment that I've seen on any of our shows since the 3 years we started the show. Wonder why that Jets fan, referring to me, has Bill stuff on his wall by the window. There is no Jets fan here. There is no Jets fan. I don't know if you heard the topic of the show. It is, who is that team that might have a chance from keeping the Chiefs from three-peating? Talked about the Bills already. Might have missed that. No, this is funny. GW, wash your mouth out with soap. Please don't say that again. This person here is all about the Bills, and there you go, right there. Gosh, over 50 years of being a Bills fan. That's how long I can remember back. So GW, you just caught me saying they're the sleeper. Maybe if they're on paper, they look great. If Rodgers is able to be Rodgers of any form, 80% or better, they might have a chance. That's all I'm saying. Go Bills.
I don't know, Mike. You seem like a closet Jet fan to me too. So
right, really, yeah.
GW on here.
My Jim Kelly and my Thurman Thomas signed helmets. I mean, I don't know.
Solid cover up.
They're yelling at me. Anyhow, GW, thanks for joining us. Haven't seen you before, and welcome to the show. Chad the Chief, you're the guy for this show. You are the reason we're doing this show, because we're fortunate enough on this channel to have both Weston and you, proud Chiefs fans who are very friendly to other fan bases, and we greatly appreciate it. But we're going to throw it to you because I want to get inside your head. Who do you think is the biggest threat? And, around town, when you're talking to your Chiefs friends, when you're talking the West, and who do you guys fear this year coming up? So throwing it to you, Chad.
Well, there's quite a few actually, but what I kind of did is I kind of put together a spreadsheet of all the teams that made the playoffs. So the Ravens, Bills, Texans, Browns, Dolphins, Steelers, and so I just went 1 through 7, and then I threw in a couple different teams there: Chargers, Bengals, Jets, and then I threw in the Jaguars just for fun. So when I started looking at them there, I started kind of breaking them down by quarterback, offensive line, running back room, and so forth. So I kind of wanted to see where did they rank. So one of the most important, what's the most important position on a football team?
The quarterback.
So when you look at the offensive line and you want to see where they are, you want to look at how many sacks did the offensive line give up, or how many, for a season. So I went back to last season. So Bills are number 1. They gave up 24 sacks, which makes it also hard to get to Josh Allen. Kansas City was number 2. They were only 4 sacks difference. So they gave up 28. Bills gave up 24. So then when you look at the Texans were 23rd. Browns 21st, Bengals 26th, the Jets 29th. So 4th from the bottom. So in sacks given up. So they obviously, got a lot, defense has got a lot of pressure on them. And, that's, because we know if your quarterback goes down, it's tough to, get the backup to go and perform just as good as, the starters. So you want to keep them protected. So, so when you look at that, Ravens were 18th, even as mobile as Lamar Jackson was, they still gave up, your bottom half of the league and giving up sacks. So, and then, when I started looking, defensive scoring, obviously you need defense in order to win. So, Ravens gave up the least amount. Bills were 4th, Chiefs were 2nd. So you're looking at 3 of the top 4, just right there. And when you look at going back to Cody's point about the Bengals defense, they were 21st in defensive scoring, so they were not very good. Chargers were 24th, and they just weren't very good either when it comes to defense. So Jets were 12th, and like we said, Jets are very stingy on defense there. I'll give them that. So when it all comes down to it, really, I think my teams were Ravens, Bills, and then I also have the Bengals, but I have hesitations too because I want to see what Burrow does coming back after an injury like that. And like you said, that he hasn't been as healthy as he has been over the last few years. And I hate to say it too, but I kind of had the sleeper team as the Jets. And it's only because of Aaron Rodgers, because I think if he can stay healthy, of course, and he is 40 years old, he'll be 41, I believe, coming up, if I'm not mistaken. They're going to need to protect him. And almost with having the same offensive line, if I'm not mistaken, you're 29th in sacks there. I mean, he might be running for his life. So, so that's the reason why I kind of think that's the sleeper. But if you want to really make me pin it down there, I'd probably say the Bills is probably the biggest threat. And it's mainly because of Josh Allen. So that's just kind of my thought process on going through it, because like I said, even the Steelers, I mean, the Steelers have always given Kansas City tough games, and it's going to be interesting to see how Russell Wilson plays within that system. Because and honestly, even with the Jets, with getting some of the weapons that they have now, how are they going to gel with, how's Mike Williams going to gel with Aaron Rodgers? I mean, they've never played together. So, I mean, that's going to be interesting. He hasn't thrown a ball to anybody in almost, over a year, or close to a year. So, you have to look at that as well. But also, you look at special teams. And when it comes down to it there, you need somebody to, I always think of mostly special teams as, there's punting, there's kicking, kickoff, stuff like that. But I always think of field goals when it matters the most, when it comes to clutch kicks, who's going to make that clutch kick. So when you look at field goal percentages, when it comes down to it, Kansas City was number 3 in overall field goal percentage of makes. Chargers were 4th, ironically, because they kicked a lot of field goals because they never could score touchdowns. And so I mean, that's, sadly, Buffalo was 23rd. And what did it come down to in the AFC divisional game? A field goal. And so I think you got to have those type of, as we mentioned before, it comes down to a couple plays. And I think that, that is just some of the things I looked at, and the coaching that we talked about too. I think Kansas City is probably by far the best staff in the league. I think Andy Reid's done a great job, and it's still Steve Spagnuolo needs to have he needs to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame whenever he decides to retire, because like I said, only defensive coordinator to have 4 Super Bowl rings. And so I just think there, by looking at that, I just think that's who I would have to go with, is Ravens, Bills, Bengals, and like I said, maybe the sleeper team would be the Jets.
Jessica, remind me what that tie is with Houston Oilers, or maybe you guys know. What's the
AFC East titles?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, they're 5th, and they're tied with they're behind the Colts, and they're tied with the Oilers for 5th.
Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah, I like what she says there too.
Yeah, I agree, Jessica. It's more of just looking at the talent and projecting. That's it. But again, my thoughts. I've said this before. They were 7 wins last 2 seasons. I don't know, 4 or 2 before that. And like Sean said, I mean, you couldn't have found a decent average quarterback if that's all you were missing last year and the year before. But we'll see. Again, sleeper team might be worth a nice little bet because they are getting good odds. I'm just saying, like $2,000. You bet $100, $2,000. I don't know. Just saying.
Well, the reason I bring up, go on. Sorry, Chad. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say real quick. I would like to bring up the Dolphins. But my thing is that I know their defense definitely took a hit. particularly, with, Christian Walker. Is it Christian Walker, I think? Or
Wilkins.
Is it Wilkinson
Yeah.
or Walker?
Wilkins.
Yeah, he goes, unfortunately, to the Raiders, so we got to face him now twice. But, he's a big man up front. I mean, he got to the quarterback a lot, and I think that's that to me is somebody you can't, it's just going to be hard to replace those kind of guys. And honestly, when it comes to the offensive line, even, Buffalo's going to have some holes to fill, and particularly at center, which is your key part. They're going to have to kind of not makeshift it, but it's going to have to be it's a learning curve. And I think that's the one thing that Kansas City does have, at least there, is they do have their entire offensive line intact from last year. So I think that's going to be a help. But it just, to me there, it's just the thing in there. I would love to throw in the Dolphins, but I think the Tua situation is up in the air. Who knows what he's going to do? Obviously, they have some of the best wide receivers in the league. We know Tyreek Hill and obviously Jaden Waddle. But I just, he's obviously got to stay healthy too. And if he doesn't, who's going to get them the ball? Because they have a great running game, but running backs usually don't throw the ball very well. So, he's got to be able to stay healthy too. I think he still has a lot to prove. So, like I said, that's just, I'd like to throw them in there, but I just think they're wild card. But I think the Jets, it all depends on, I think, Aaron Rodgers, because their defense is really good. I mean, their defense can keep them in games. They did against Kansas City. We only beat them by, I think, 3. Was it 17-14? I think they held us to 17 last year on Sunday Night Football. So, I think it just depends on what they do. But if you told me, though, I'd say probably Bills would be number 1. Ravens would be 2.
All right. And tell the people we haven't paid you. I know you're in our Discord. You're good friends with Bills folks. Tell the people we haven't paid you to say this, because
I have not been paid. I have not received a check yet. But no. And really, I think if you really wanted to dig into it, a really sleeper team, I would probably say would be the Texans, because of what they did last year. Yeah. My concern with them is, can they do it again? And I think Mahomes kind of broke that mold a little bit with some of the quarterbacks that came out, because I know technically it was his second year, but it was his first year as a starter. He repeated it again because, look, 2018 AFC Championship, 2019 AFC Championship, won the Super Bowl, 2020 Super Bowl, 2020. I mean, he's able to repeat it. Like I said, been 6 straight, the AFC, they call it the Arrowhead Invitational. So it's it's one of those things. Can you do it again? And if they can shore up, I think, a few things there, even with him being on the offensive line, like say, giving up, being 25th? No, I'm sorry, 23rd in sacks. I mean, if they can just improve that and keep him upright, and I think that'll help also with a good wide receivers there. But now with the running backs that they have, now maybe getting Mixon, with having Mixon now and getting him mixed in, that'll hopefully maybe take some of that pressure off Stroud, where then he won't have to throw it as much. So we'll see. But I think if you want to really have a second sleeper, I think it'd probably be the Texans.
Yeah, I did want to mention, you talked about the O-line of the Jets. They did upgrade their bookends, and they drafted a first-round offensive tackle who probably not going to start because their bookends are so good. They got Smith and Moses over there. And the internal left guard center, they have Tippmann, who was a rookie I think Tippmann was a rookie last year, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so when he came in, he looked really good. This is the second year, so they've upgraded a little bit. I did want to ask you, Cody, real quick. Did we overlook the Steelers? I mean, they get Patrick Queen from linebacker. They got the best, defensive end, edge rusher, TJ Watt. They just have a stout defense. And offensively, with the new quarterback there, the new quarterback situation, and probably one of the best coach teams in Tomlin. I thought about them. I didn't really take a close look at them. Are we overlooking that team?
You need the quarterback play to get to a level that it hasn't been there ever since Ben Roethlisberger started the decline of his career. You would need Russell Wilson, because I don't think there's any way that Justin Fields is ever elevating himself into that. So even if he were to take over at some point or win the job somehow, I don't think he's a good enough NFL quarterback to ever elevate a team to a Super Bowl aspiration level. And so you need Russell Wilson to come in here and revert to like 3 years ago Russell Wilson. If you could do that, I actually think that you could put together enough of a team there. I don't know if they have the offensive firepower. I mean, outside of George Pickens and Pat Freiermuth and then your 2 running backs, I mean, you're trusting a rookie wide receiver in Roman Wilson right now to be your wide receiver 2. Either that, or you're trusting Van Jefferson, who has just been kind of a guy everywhere that he's been. I do like the addition for this team, though, of like bringing in Arthur Smith. Matt Canada in that system has been pretty comical over the last couple of years with what they've tried to do at the offensive coordinator position. So as much as Arthur Smith got a lot of crap last year as head coach, I mean, this guy was bringing Ryan Tannehill to playoff games whenever he was in Tennessee. So if you just put a play action manageable Russell Wilson in there who can return a little bit to form, I like them, but I don't think they have enough firepower to really get over the hump. The one that I would throw out there is my sleeper if I had to, actually, in my own division, which is unfortunate. I am terrified of a healthy Anthony Richardson. I know the defense for the Colts was pretty bad last year, and they would definitely need to step their game up on that side of the ball. But Anthony Richardson, while he was healthy last year, before he went out in like every single game, he was electric on the football field. And if you can put together a full season, that guy is scary.
Yeah, I agree. Jessica really, I mean, she said this, I think, when you're on our last show, Cody. Something similar. Texans lucked into the playoffs, could barely beat the Colts in the last game of the regular season, who did not have their starting quarterback for most of the year, plus the Jaguars collapsed. Again, some of that might be true, but they did. I mean, Jessica, look at their wide receiver core. I mean, my goodness, they lost Tank Dell, right? Tank Dell got hurt towards the end of the season and missed most of that, right?
Yeah, he got hurt. He was in on a goal line play, and he was running across and then dove in as like a blocker up the middle for some reason. And everybody says that it was like stupid on Slowick's part to put him there. He was supposed to run all the way to the outside. Like, he wasn't even supposed to be in there. That was a player like, hey, I'm just trying to make a play, went in, and I think he fractured lower leg or something like that. So he was out past like week 10. But I agree. I do agree with Jessica here. She brought it up last time as well. I think we're overhyped. Like, I really do. We have 1 year of production here, and CJ Stroud didn't really even start to come on. Like, he was still good, but he didn't even really start to come on until like week 7, week 8. And then it was the run from there, and then national media behind it all. I think we're overhyped in national media, but if they take another step forward, I still think they're a team that could potentially do it.
All right, Sean, I know you had a few comments. Sorry, I think you were trying to say something earlier.
No. That's okay. No, I was just saying the reason I brought up the Flacco with the Browns comparison was because the Browns were, I think, a top 3 defense the entire year last year. And I would argue that Garrett Wilson's better than Amari Cooper. I would argue that, offensively, without Nick Chubb, the Jets probably had a better offensive weaponry than Joe Flacco had last year. And Joe Flacco still, I mean, obviously he didn't play the entire season, but he looked like, a solid quarterback, and they won 12 games. And yeah, they got, drudged in the first round of the playoffs, but people omit that when they talk about, oh, we just need middle of the pack quarterback play. I would say Joe Flacco was middle of the pack. So how come you guys couldn't bring that out in him 2 years ago when you had him? How come he was, you guys were 4-13 when you had Joe Flacco? So that's why I brought that up, because the Browns defense and the Jets defense, you could argue which one's better, but they're both, pretty stacked. And I think last year the Jets had a better offense than the Browns did with Joe Flacco, again, because Nick Chubb got hurt. And I still think Garrett Wilson's better than Amari Cooper. And I guess maybe Njoku's better than I forgot the Jets tight end even, Conklin. Yeah, and then I got Breece Hall was better than whoever the Browns had at running back. So, you could certainly argue. Obviously, the Browns had a better O-line, but they even missed. They lost their right tackle in the beginning of the year. Their center was in and out of injury. So that's why I bring that up, because people just and you see it everywhere. It's not just, friends that we have, but everyone just, oh, the Jets. But then, they leave out, key details of, Rodgers 2 years ago when he did play wasn't that good. And then, they had Flacco, who's a decent quarterback last year, but he wasn't decent with the Jets for some reason. So, where's the disconnect there? And, you guys brought up Miami a little bit, and I wouldn't, if I had to definitely pick a sleeper, I would maybe lean towards Miami. But like you guys said, Tua, he's either really good against the bad teams, and then, he's a 7-14 against the winning teams. He's played great games, obviously, but the ones that matter most, he struggles in. And, he's in a contract year. They're, the way I look at it is people think he's a top 5 quarterback. Not saying you guys do, but a lot of people argue that. And if he was, there wouldn't be this much stipulation in getting him his deal right now. It would already been done like that. It wouldn't take till year 5. It wouldn't even take this long into year 5 if it did take till year 5. And you know, he's got a lot to prove too. They probably got the best offense in the league again. Again, best, you know, 1 or 2 best receiving weapons in the league. Maybe it's the Texans and the Dolphins with the best weapons. The Dolphins improved their O-line a little bit as well. Their guards are still questionable. I think Connor Williams might be coming back, but again, I'm not too sure about that. But you know, Tua's got to be able to perform in the big moments. They got the weapons to do it. Now it's just if Tua can grow mentally and physically as far as going into year 5, if he can make that jump, if he's going to stay the same, I don't have faith in the Dolphins. But if he can take another leap, you know, I don't believe leading in passing yards makes you a really good quarterback. You know, Derek Carr, 5,000 yards passing a few years. Jameis Winston, 5,500 yards passing. Matt Ryan, over 5,000 yards passing. That to me doesn't mean you're an elite quarterback. So I kind of just throw that leading in passing yards thing out. But I think the Dolphins have a chance, you know, possibly. But again, just the sample size that they have with Tua and Mike McDaniel, they're 1-6 against the Bills alone with Tua. And that, you know, that's just not good. Plus, I guess the other winning teams, like I said, they're 7-14. So that's not going to, you know, give you good odds in the playoffs.
I'll tell you what, you just had to get to a conversation out here, didn't you? You just had to. I know Keith is probably listening out there, and you are always chatting it up about him. But one other team, real quick, Cody, because we are going to stay to an hour. We're at 51 minutes. We got a few minutes left. But one team that made the thumbnail that actually had a hot run towards the end of the season with Joe Flacco, now with Deshaun Watson coming back. What's your thoughts on Cleveland? They made the thumbnail. I'm not so sure. Where do you have them?
Yeah, they're another team that just needs to see a resurgence from their quarterback that's just seen a decline over the last couple of years. Because you got damn good play out of Joe Flacco for, like you said, a good portion of that run to the end of the year. But you're going to need Deshaun Watson. It's crazy that we're talking about it. Feels hard to talk about every AFC North team, but here we are talking about every AFC North team is potentially a team that could easily get to like 10 wins. And I could see the Browns being another team that does that. I like Stefanski. Nick Chubb hopefully can come back healthy later in the year. I hope they honestly don't play him much at all unless they have to during the regular season. And then they just ease him back in for a playoff run if I was hoping for them. But Deshaun Watson's going to need to get back to Houston Texans level of play. Otherwise, I don't think they really have a legitimate shot.
All right, awesome stuff.
That's
Cody.
a good point, Mike, and Cody too. That I totally agree. I was just talking about the Browns, how they had 12 wins, and I didn't even think about putting them as a potential because they lost Nick Chubb early. And right. So imagine if he was probably, you know, going to be the best running back in the league last year. And you know, unfortunately the injury was gruesome. So who knows, but you know, they're definitely, well, you know, 2-time coach of the year, Kevin Stefanski. That's Kevin Stefanski, right? Yeah. O'Connell's the Vikings. Yeah. So they're well coached. Always got a great offensive line. Their defense was top notch. And again, they have decent weapons on offense. So, you know, it'd be interesting.
And they had the defensive player of the year in Myles Garrett. So, I mean, they ran it there too. So, and going back to your point, Mike, there, and I'll be brief because I know we're running up on the clock. Mm-hmm. I do think maybe we are running up on or overlooking the Steelers just a little bit because they do have a top-notch defense, and that's why I mentioned them earlier because they've always given Kansas City a run for the money anytime that we play them, whether it's in the regular season or the playoffs. I think it just comes down to with what Russell Wilson does and also with their wide receivers. And I would probably say that the Jaguars, it's the AFC South for them to lose. I think they would still probably be the favorite because, I mean, a healthy Trevor Lawrence can, come about will be good. And also they do usually are one of the ones in the lead leaders in sacks. And so they can get after the quarterback. They do have a great running back in Travis Etienne, which he always seems to do really well against us for some reason. But I think it comes down to their wide receiver core, especially losing what's the guy that went to Tennessee? Yeah, Calvin Ridley. Losing him, I think, is huge. So I think it's going to come down to them. But I really think that I do think it's probably their division to lose because they just, like Jessica said earlier, commented, they did collapse. I mean, they lost what, 6 straight, I think, to end the season, 7 or maybe 8. It was horrendous. And so I just think it's I do think that is probably one there, but I do think the Steelers probably are being overlooked.
Yeah, good point.
Well, listen, I want to end with with Jessica here. Jessica brings some incredible information. We've tried to get her on the show. She's just she's demanding a lot of money contract. We'd love to have her one time, but we'll figure out a deal. But she is spot on with a lot of her takes. And like I said earlier, JW, I'm not a Jets fan. If you heard me earlier, my theme this year is flip the script. So the Buffalo Bills, I love it. That's our number one team to threaten the Chiefs from three-peating. She got a healthy Bengals. Yep, definitely agree. We talked about that. It's all about Burrow. Can he stay healthy? Baltimore, absolutely. My son will be happy to hear that Baltimore is one of the top 3 teams. Jags, interesting. They did not make they made my original thumb. And the only reason they fell off, because I felt they deserved to be there, the only reason they fell off was because I was getting crowded on the thumbnail. And I looked at what Vegas had as far as their odds go. So they were a little bit lower than all the teams that are listed on that thumbnail. But I love the pick there. Cleveland, yeah. Did we overlook them a little bit? Maybe. Pittsburgh, agree. And Jets, hey, JW. I know Jessica's not a Jets fan, so JW, you probably left. Hope you're out there, JW. If you are, I'm just kidding with you. But I greatly appreciate you jumping in to check out the show. So Pittsburgh and Jets, a team to beat KC, they need to have an above-average defense. Miami, Texans, Chargers do not have that. And I agree with the Chargers. Like you said, I think they're at least a year off. Going to be interesting with Jim coming back there. Texans, Cody, you're saying it. You're like, you're a little overrated. Maybe another year. But I'll tell you what, from a fantasy perspective, I want a lot of guys in that offense. And then Miami. Mm-hmm. So anyhow, let me just go real quick. I want to say thank you all to who have joined us tonight. Please like, comment, and drop a nickel on that subscribe button. And Keith, if you're hearing this, Keith was trying to say this. He's like, I think Mike says drop a nickel on that like. No, it's drop a nickel on that subscribe button. It's absolutely free. But I want to thank Cody from the Fantasy Draft Room. Cody, real quick, tell everyone where they can find you. I know there's also a podcast out there as well.
Yeah, the Fantasy Draft Room is the YouTube. We'll pick that one back up when the season starts, but for the remainder of the offseason, every Tuesday and then all the way through the season as well, we drop on Destination Devy Radio. We have the Overreaction podcast on there. And coming up on Tuesday, if you want to hear about some of the teams, we're actually going to be going through the AFC East and North probably and doing projections for every fantasy relevant player and statting out the entire offense for yards, passing yards, rushing yards, touchdowns, everything that can matter for fantasy. So we've got that going on for the next couple of weeks here.
Awesome. I'll put the links in the description to Cody's. He's got a YouTube channel and that podcast. I'll update it right when we're done here. Sean from Red, White, and Bills, thank you for joining us. It's been a long time since people have seen your face. You're looking good. What can you tell the folks real quick about what you got going on in the near future?
On the Red, White, and Bills channel, probably wait until, close to near the end of camp. Of course, we'll still be doing the Red, White, and Ruthless on Nickel City Mafia. Maybe get a couple videos between here and then. I was going to do some we do plan on doing something with my friends over at the Fence Tailgate, Shake Money, and Crypto. We were going to do something with each division, I think projecting their records. So probably start that soon. But other than that, I'll kind of just wait till things start to heat up. And, because it's hard because as soon as one little thing happens, like the 20 Bills creators already post it, and I'm just like doing jobs every day. And I'm like, well, I'm the 21st person to do the video on, Keon Coleman making the best catch in the world, whatever, for example. I don't want to just be the last person to do everything. So once the season starts getting ramped up, I'll start planning ahead, and then we'll get going. But me and Brett should be back next Saturday at 8:30 on Nickel City Mafia, and we'll see what we do. Brett's the mastermind behind the planning, so you have to get with him.
All right, Chad, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Again, you're fantastic. You've been on our show a few times now. We always appreciate you. please try to talk to Weston. I'd
pleasure.
love to get the both of you on one of these times. Weston, again, he's another guy who's waiting out for a big contract before he shows his face. He's always out there in the channel talking it up. But Hannah, guys, listen.
And again, you didn't pay me, so hey, how about that?
Yeah.
If you don't mind, before we go, and by the way,
I gotta hit that button, sir. I gotta hit that button. So I know you want to answer.
Well,
we gotta get out of here. Take care, everyone.
No problem.
Bye-bye.